So welcome back to Consulting Business School, and the topic this week is the qualities of a management consultant. Why do I think that's important? I've seen a lot of really great consultants over the years and some who are not so great. And maybe if I share what I think are the really good qualities of a management consultant, of a good one, it could help you decide whether it's for you or not. Coming right up. So perhaps you're already in management consulting, maybe you're running your own firm, maybe you're working in a larger firm, maybe you're thinking of getting into management consulting. Does it suit you? That's the big question we're talking about today. And the angle, the lens that I'm going to look at that through is the qualities of a management consultant. What makes a really good management consultant? And I suppose this came up as a topic because running my own consulting business, a lot of what I do is really coaching the consultants within the firm and helping them be better at their role, helping them be better consultants for our clients, helping them progress. And from time to time, I kind of notice traits perhaps which are holding them back and which I want to try and help them with. So I think that could be of interest to you. Now, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. It always helps me to know which videos are popular and it helps spread the word out. This is not a commercial channel, so the more you can do to help spread the channel out to others, the more people can get the benefit. So thanks for watching, and let's get into the topic. So what are some of the key qualities? And first off, I might just talk about this old chestnut, a consultant versus a coach. And the reason I want to mention that again is that I had a question from somebody the other day. They wanted some help setting up a consulting business. They wanted to know if I could provide some one-on-one consulting support. It's something that I'm thinking of doing, maybe as I sort of get closer to retirement. So if that's of interest, do comment down below. As I get more time, I might do that. But it was interesting because I sensed that maybe what they were getting into wasn't consulting and it was more like coaching. And I won't say where they were based or the particular field that they were working in, but I asked them, are you working kind of one-on-one with people? Is it one-to-many? Are you teaching people some general techniques for them to apply? Are you providing a program, a framework that they're going to work through? That's kind of coaching. And that's really popular over the last 10 years or so. And there are coaches out there who will coach you on anything. Look, I don't want to sound negative about this, but I do a lot of training for myself. And I've sat in a lot of seminars and coaching programs, because I want to learn more about marketing and how to do my job better. And I've sat with people at those events who are coaches, life coaches and all sorts of things. And I say, well, what training have you had in this? What experience have you had in this? And a lot of them have none. And I think that's not a great aspect of the coaching industry. Don't get me wrong, I have participated in some coaching programs that were fantastic, but there's a lot out there which are pretty thin. What we're talking about here is management consulting, a lot different, as you'll understand when I go through the qualities of a good management consultant. My apologies if there's a bit of noise outside. I'm in my home office and we're about to get our bins emptied. So we're going to hear a clunk, 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 clunk as the garbage men do their job. Wonderful people. We're just going to go past. Here we go. So we're going to be talking about the qualities of a management consultant. It's very different. Why is it different? Let me give you an example. I kicked off a new project with a client yesterday. I took two of my consultants with me, specialists in different areas, and we spent the whole day with the client in their premises, looking at their facility, walking through all the processes, talking to lots of senior managers, and really honing in on the scope of the work that we were doing and what sort of outcomes they wanted. We were talking about data that we were going to analyse, the business plan we were going to help them put together. It's very tailored and specific. It's for that one client. It's not a program for people, like a learning program that they're going to go away and apply themselves. So that's the big difference that I see with management consulting. And that's what this channel is all about. But let's get on with the topic. What are the qualities of great consultants? First of all, and you'll understand now why I sort of gave that intro. First of all, it's knowledge. People are coming to a management consultant for their knowledge in solving a particular problem. And again, unlike coaching, where you're tending to work with individuals, business owners perhaps, consulting, you're working for the business. You're helping to lift a particular aspect of performance in the business overall. It's not so much about the individuals. So they want to be dealing with a consultant or a consulting firm that has in-depth knowledge of fixing their particular challenge. So, for example, the project we were kicking off yesterday, I run a logistics consulting business. It was a classic problem that we've come across. They had, I forget how big it is, 15,000 square metre, 150,000 square feet warehouse. Their business is expanding. They're wondering, how long can we keep going in this warehouse before we have to move, or are there some upgrade opportunities that we can do? So it's a very detailed piece of work. We have to analyse all of their inventory levels, their throughputs of product, and we were able, through spending a lot of time in the warehouse yesterday, to already start to get an idea of some of the things that we could do with bits of automation and so on to extend the life of that facility. So again, I use that example to illustrate how management consulting is very, very specific to the individual business and their particular requirements. It's not delivering a program of stuff. Where there's a slight overlap is in our approach to the work. We have some fairly standard approaches that we apply, but it's tailored very much to the individual business. So they're looking for knowledge, and they're looking for a track record in solving these particular problems. So in talking to that client, when we were pitching for the work, I was able to say, we've done this, we've solved this exact problem 243 times before in 22 countries, and with some case studies and things like that. So they're confident that we have the ability, almost sight unseen, to help them fix their problem. How do you have that knowledge and track record up front when you're starting out? It's really hard, isn't it? And I think, again, this is a little bit where the difference lies between coaching and management consulting. Management consulting, the rubbers hit the road. It's not so much conceptual and theoretical. So how do you get that knowledge and experience? And we're all a little bit nervous when we first get into management consulting. I certainly was. I got into it 30 years ago, working for a management consulting business here in Australia. Great company, some great mentors. I learned a heap from them. But I can remember turning around to the managing director one day and saying to him, I come out on these sales calls with you and I feel like a spare wheel. I don't say much. I don't participate much. I'm feeling a bit inadequate on these sales calls. And he gave me some great advice, which I now pass on to my team. And they just, don't worry. It's all part of the sort of induction, the apprenticeship, if you like. Coming on these sales meetings with me, you start to get an understanding of how I handle them, how I talk to the client, how I share case studies, how I build credibility, how we tease out what it is they really need as an outcome, and that kind of stuff. And it was so true. And if you're watching this, Mark, you were a fantastic coach and mentor in my early consulting life, you and many others in that organisation. So I don't know that you can fast track being a management consultant. Is there a program that you can pick up and learn it and suddenly, put up a sign and be a management consultant tomorrow? Look, you can. I think you need a couple of years of experience, to be honest, working with somebody who's been in the game a bit longer. That's certainly what I did. I worked for another management consulting company for 3 years and I was very happy there. I just felt that I wanted to run my own firm and do it in a slightly different way. And if I hadn't had that grounding of working with Mark and his team for 2 or 3 years, it was probably more like 3 or 4, I don't think I could have done it. So I just want to sow that seed in your mind. If whatever field that you're going to be consulting in, and do comment down below and tell me what sort of management consulting field you're thinking of, maybe try to get a little bit of experience working with people who are far more experienced than you even if it's for a year or two, just to learn how it all operates, how it all works, and to get that initial credibility. Because until you've got that first client, you've got no track record, you've got no sort of case study stories to tell. And it's really useful to be able to lean on the experience of others in those early days. Maybe you're going to start a consulting business with a partner who's got more experience or something like that. But don't be scared initially, I guess, is what I'm saying. We all start out raw and inexperienced, but try to gain the experience, learn from working with much more experienced people, either a partner or within another consulting company. There's a funny story which I probably shouldn't share here, but I will anyway. One of my best consultants a couple of years ago came to me and said, Rob, I've had this fantastic offer from one of the big 4 consulting firms, and for career development, yada yada yada. I really feel I should give it a try. And I said, no problem, go for it. What a great opportunity. And as I say to anybody who leaves my own consulting business, Logistics Bureau, if it doesn't work out, you're welcome back anytime. 6 weeks later, I got a phone call. Would it be all right if I came back? Of course. Why wouldn't I have one of my best consultants come back? Why did that happen? Because it was a very different operating environment. So if you're thinking of starting up your own consulting company, I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to model it on the one that you are sort of learning from. Let's say you get into another consulting company for a year or two, you don't have to model your consulting company on that one, but you're learning the trade, if you like, and then you can do it your own way. So, sorry, I waffled on a bit there, but how do you gain this knowledge and experience? Number 2 quality, and I kind of touched on it, is the client wants to know that you've got the solution. They don't want to be paying you to learn on their time. So again, that's pretty difficult when you start out, and it's very difficult if you don't have experience in the industry. So again, that's a comparison with coaching. A lot of coaching programs are somewhat conceptual and theoretical, and that's fine. This is the best way to do your marketing and so on. I always try to find, when I'm learning from coaches, I want coaches who've done exactly what I'm trying to do. And likewise, if you're in management consulting, the client wants to know that you have fixed this exact problem before for many other companies. And they'd be interested to know your approach and how you fix that. So again, coming back to the example yesterday, we were able to walk around the warehouse and go, yep, seen these problems before, and this is a trap actually for new consultants. It's very tempting to walk through a client's facility and say, well, that's wrong and that's wrong. One of my consultants actually remarked as we were walking around, oh, that looks a bit strange. And he's been with me a while, but I remarked to the client immediately, I said, of course, on these early walks around and looking through your factory or warehouse or whatever, it's very easy to spot things and be critical. But what I found over the years is there's usually a very good reason for why something's done like that. And we take that into account. So don't be too critical up front. You've got to really understand your client's business before you start throwing around solutions. Otherwise, you look like a bit of a know-it-all who doesn't really understand what they're doing. Just remember that. If something doesn't look right, people don't do wrong things on purpose. There's very often a reason why they do that. And the particular thing that we saw yesterday was probably due to a lack of space or whatever. But they expect you to know the solutions, number 2. Number 3. This kind of naturally follows on, and I've said this before. Listen. We've got 2 of these and 1 of these. Use them in that ratio. And that's a tricky balance, particularly for new consultants, because you feel that you've got to demonstrate your ability. You've got to demonstrate your knowledge. And new consultants very often end up talking too much and not listening. So you learn very quickly to listen, to consider what you're hearing. You're generally working with very smart people, so don't assume you're the smartest in the room. You might be the one in the room that has the solutions, but there's generally a lot of very smart people, and that was the case yesterday. Some very smart people. And our role is to sort of guide them to the right solution and help them develop the right solution. So do listen more than you talk. And as the relationship progresses, so the ratio can change a little bit. I do lots of listening up front, and you've almost got to seed conversations a little bit to demonstrate your experience. So, we were doing that yesterday. So, oh yeah, we've seen that solution here and there, and this might work for you guys. We're not sure yet. So again, helping instill a degree of confidence with the client, but not overtaking the conversation too much. Let them tell their story, let them share their issues. So do listen and build empathy. Some of the best consultants I've worked with, and I've probably worked with 100 in my own consulting business over the years, and more interestingly, with lots of other consulting groups, a lot of the big four groups, a lot of other specialist consulting groups, because we sometimes collaborate on a project. We've got a very large construction project underway at the moment, where I think all up there are 200 consultants working on it from about 25 different consulting companies, all in specialist areas. And it's great because you get to collaborate with all these specialists in different fields. You learn from each other, and so that's cool. So you've got to have empathy with the people you're working with. It might be other consultants. I've worked with a direct competitor on a project before. Our absolute direct competitor was working on one particular thing with a client, and we were working on another, and we collaborated on a joint project, and it was fine. They were great people. Be grown up, be professional. You're there to help the client. And we work very well together. So you want empathy with other consultants, with the client's team. You want to be able to build that empathy at all levels, so that you can talk to the people in the warehouse and understand what they're doing, understand what's driving them. And then, 10 minutes later, you're back in the boardroom talking to the directors, and you've got to be comfortable talking at that level as well. So listening and empathy was number 3. Number 4, this is an interesting one. Be calm. I think new consultants can sometimes panic a little bit when things go off the rails or not quite as expected. I probably had a lot of anxiety when I first started consulting because, maybe some analysis didn't work out as expected, or the client's thrown a curveball, something's thrown you off balance. Again, the client is expecting you to be the professional, the calm person, the one that's going to bring order and bring improvement to the business. I suddenly thought, as I was jotting down some notes for this video, of an instance which is totally unrelated to management consulting, but there's that wonderful quote, isn't it? When all about you are, is it a Shakespeare quote? When all about you are losing their heads, you've got to be the calm one on the battlefield or something. Or maybe it's a leadership quote, the leader remains calm when everyone else is panicking, that kind of thing. We were out sailing, I think it was last year, and we had some friends on the boat, and we hit some particularly bad weather, some pretty strong winds, and the friends were sailing, they were sailing the boat and they weren't very experienced, and they went through a turn sailing, and we had a big wrap up on the sail at the front, the jib, and it was kind of wrapped around the mast, and a bit of a drama, and they were panicking a bit, and I said to them, look, just keep it head to wind, and I'll go up on the foredeck and I'll sort it out. And so I was up on the foredeck in about 30 knots, 40 knots of wind, this sail whipping and ropes whipping around, could easily have knocked me off the boat. And I was laying flat on the deck with the sail sort of flapping around, would have taken my head off almost, sort of straight above me. And I was just waiting for the right moment when they brought it head into wind, and it was still for a moment, and then I was able to untangle something and then come back down, and the guy who was on the wheel of the boat sort of said, wow, how do you remain calm when we're all panicking, It's knowledge. And, I come from a background, it's not appropriate to talk about it, but like sort of an emergency services background. And so when the wheels fall off, you learn not to panic. You start to think logically and you work out a solution. It's the same with management consulting. And I've had assignments like that where, I might have a consultant starting to get a bit anxious about the outcome of the project. Just, let's calm down, look at this logically, and let's work out a solution. So I just digress to, yeah, that's what your clients are looking for. They want somebody who's going to be that calm professional. You don't see doctors panicking, do you? You know, you come into an emergency and they go, oh my God, you know, he's going to die. You know, they don't want a management consultant who's going to go, oh crap, you know, you've got a problem. So you want to be that calm professional who's going to, you know, give them the solution. Even if, you know, you go to the bathroom and sort of go, not sure about this one, you're going to work it out because you know what you're doing. So calm is number 4. Number 5, and these are in no particular sequence, but I think they're expecting a professional approach, a methodology, if you like, a process that you're working through. That's really important, that when we're starting a project, our clients get, you know, mapped out very clearly how the project's going to progress, what the key milestones are going to be, what their role's going to be, what our role's going to be, how we're going to communicate, how the project governance is going to work. You know, imagine if you're the client, you want to start this consulting assignment and think, this is cool. I can see this is going to unroll, again with the example yesterday, this is going to unroll over 6 weeks, and we'll know this by the 3-week point, and we'll have our business case at the 6-week point. And these are the key meetings that we're going to have to bounce around options and decisions and so on. Be that professional, well organised, you know, with a good process. Number 6 that I'll mention, I could probably have 24 of these, but number 6, quality, is absolute trustworthiness and professional in your dealings with your client. The client should be able to trust you like their doctor. I was going to say lawyer. I think we trust doctors more, don't we? I certainly trust mine. They want to feel that they can share information with you, concerns, fears, and it's not going to go any further. There's the commercial confidentiality bit. You know, there is extremely confidential information. Again, going to the example yesterday, that was interesting. There were, I think, 8 of the client team in the meeting and 3 of us. And before we kicked off, I just leant over to one of the directors of the client business, who's our sort of sponsor on the project. And it's quite a confidential project. I said, given the group in the room today, is everything on the table? Is there anything that's overly confidential? Because he's shared some really confidential aspects of the business and their future. And he said, no, it's fine. Everybody kind of knows what this is about. But sometimes you've got to check in like that, you know, and you say, well, are there some topics with this group that are off limits? You know, do respect confidentiality, respect your clients. You know, they've got to be absolutely 100% confident with you that they can share stuff, that you can keep a secret basically, and that they can trust you. And I think that's probably one of the most important aspects of a consulting relationship. And to be honest, I think that's one of the reasons why I have clients coming back after 20 years or more. I think I've mentioned this on the channel before. You know, it happens 2 or 3 times a year at least, where I'll get a phone call, hey, this is John Smith, you know, remember me? And I go, oh yeah, you're from that food company based down in Melbourne. Yeah. Well, we want to, you know, do the same kind of project again, but now I'm with a different food company. And isn't that great? You get to go. In fact, this one yesterday, I'm just thinking, it was one of those, because we helped them with their warehouse 10 years ago. And I literally got a call about 2 months back. I think I might have mentioned it on the channel in another context. And he said, you know, we've got to do the same again. Can you guys come and help us? Isn't that a great way to run a management consulting business? You don't have to go out looking for work. You know, the clients ring you up when they need your help. That's probably a topic for another day. And that topic is going to be that we don't have salespeople. We just have clients contacting us wanting help, and we respond. So there we go. Some of the key qualities, I think, that are really essential for a management consultant. If you think there are others, do jot them down below. Any questions? You know, I will answer those personally. But thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye for now.